0, 1.
Let's get started.
It is time, and welcome back to this week's episode of the NBA Fantasy Recap Show, brought to you by DBOB. Don't bet on birds. I'm your host.
What up, gang? You bunch of bozos. Happy Monday. This is your Week 11 Fantasy Recap, brought to you by yours truly, Mr. 2000. He's back. I was a huge fan of this week for obvious reasons, but a lot of underdogs, a lot of unlikely heroes, and we shook up the leaderboard. So we'll talk about that as we keep going through this. And with no further ado, we'll jump right in that shit. We've got 1-800-9 with it versus I Have No Franz. I had 2,088 points this week versus Eric's 1,700. While that was the third highest of any team, it wasn't enough to beat me. And I'm sorry, Eric, but we look at the box score and you see why. It's because my top two players were Austin Reeves and Trey Murphy 3. Those are not guys that I'd ever expect to be number one and number two. They were higher than DeJounte Murray, Trae Young, higher than Scotty Barnes. And those are guys that I found on the waiver wire. So that really makes a huge difference for me as I add up a whole bunch of points in the points column. You track over and look at Eric's got Giannis and CJ McCollum with 197 and 196. And then Jamal Murray with 193. Actually, oddly enough, both of our third highest scorers are both Murrays and DeJounte and Jamal. But that's enough. I don't want to rub it in Eric's face too much more. I kind of was doing it all week long, and just got to be better than that next week, Eric. Move on to Chanks Chuchos versus Slim Shady. This is one of my favorite matchups from the week, because watching this one all week long. I was definitely rooting for Chance as the underdog, and just I feel like Daniel lucked out because John Collins was left on the IR slot for Chanks Chuchos on Saturday, and that looks like it actually would have made the difference in this matchup. But regardless, it's hard to stop Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who had 284 points this week for Team Slim Shady. And his number two player was Russell Westbrook with 212. Again, that's one of those unlikely hero guys. Those are the guys that I like to look at for players of the week. But we'll get there. Chanks Chuchos got 212 points out of LeBron. And then everybody else was a little bit low. He had Desmond Bane with 157. Paul George decided to actually play basketball for him this week, but still not very impressive. We'll see if Chance can string some wins together here now that he's active. We like seeing that, making some moves on the waiver wire and keeping guys in and whatever. You know the name of the game, and Chance is in it now. So you saw him have a pretty competitive matchup with Slim Shady. Maybe this is another guy to monitor for some upsets moving forward. But congrats to Slim Shady. Pulls out a narrow victory again, and he made 3 moves on the wire. He actually outmoved Chance. So congrats. We move on to Connor For Real versus a rebranding now, and no more Obi-Wan Ginobili, Kobe, whatever the fuck he had going on, it's gone. And it's now Jimmy B and the injuries for Jesse. He got absolutely blown out by Connor For Real. Connor For Real put up the second most points this week with 17-16. Top player was Tyrese Halliburton. Second best player was Malik Monk with 208 points. Tyrese had 212. Jimmy B and the injuries saw Josh Hart as the number one player. 243 points from Josh Hart this week. Holy smokes. Looks like maybe he played 4 times. But let's see, on the 4th against Chicago, so this would have been Saturday, Josh Hart had 2 points and still recorded 48 fantasy points. He had 16 rebounds, 10 assists, and a steal in there, and still 2 turnovers. So he was, if he'd held on to the ball, he'd had a 50-point fantasy night with just 2 points in the points column. But we're going to need better stuff than that from you, Jesse. Jimmy P and the injuries get some more injuries added with an L this week. Connor Rio takes it to a 4-game win streak. Look at him go. Could be talking about him here later as manager of the week, but maybe not. We've done that a lot this year. Moving on to Grime Time Super Gremlins versus Wet Boy Nation. Man. Wet Boy's dry. He might have had a win. He might have gotten a win in last week, but it's a flash in the pan as he scores the lowest points out of anybody this week. I do remember seeing on Thursday somehow he had only scored 400 points by Thursday or something, as I was already well into 1,200. I don't know. Looks like Wet Boy's team is just not very wet. Grimes got 230 points out of Anthony Davis, 194 points out of Joel Embiid. It was kind of shocked to see that. Wow, Embiid's playing this week. That looks like he did that in 2 games. I can't do math. That's 3 games, but whatever. Big win for Grimes here. He's got Max Christie down there. Maybe that's his lucky charm. We'll see, man. Grimes has got 3 in a row here, moving up to 5 and 6. 1445 is a respectable number here. We'll monitor Grimes, and we'll wish Wet Boy a farewell here as we continue to beat him the rest of the year. But talking about upsets, we see Coach Kawhi and Sabonis take down Wow My Team is Soft this week. Coach Kawhi and Sabonis 1575 versus 1454 from Dakota. This is an unlikely hero here. CJ moving on to 4 and 7. His top players this week were Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. Fox did not take the floor last night. So in one less game, Fox was able to put up 167 points, while his top scorer in Sabonis was 227 points. Jason Tatum for Wow My Team is Soft had 214, while Jared Allen was the second best at 180. Yves Macy was his third best player at 162. Those Pelicans players, man, you never know what's going to go on with the Pelicans. They suck, and they're going to trade everybody that they have that's good, but you get a lot of good fantasy streamers off that team. For a while, Jordan Hawkins was a good player. Brandon Boston's floating around. I've got 3 Pelicans players on my team. These guys aren't bad guys to look for on the wire, but you do kind of have to luck out on who's playing, who's hurt, and what's the rotation look like in New Orleans. And I don't even think that Willie Green's got it figured out yet, but dumpster fire of an organization right now, and pretty good guys to use as monitor or for streaming options, night in, night out. But congrats to CJ, gets a big win there. I know that's one of those ones that will maybe motivate him to play a tough week this week, but we'll look into that here in a moment. And our final matchup from this week is another underdog, is another unlikely hero in Team Velasquez beating the Boilermakers. We talked about Boilermakers last week, and he beat me, and I was worried he's going to be one of these teams to kind of beat, but he was admitting defeat, saying his season's over. He is absolutely lost all motivation after this loss with Team Velasquez, and I love to see it. Team Velasquez wins 15-17 to 14-94. That could be another one that's in the contention for matchup of the week. But I think I should talk about some of that real quick. Matchup of the week, team of the week. I have myself, Mr. 2000. Hard to argue. I'll hear any argument. I will dismantle any argument as to why I shouldn't be team of the week. But I've got manager of the week. Golly, it could go a lot of different ways. I want to give it to Jorge. I want to give it to CJ. Jorge had a closer matchup. I think he made all the right moves on Sunday to make it happen. He used 5 out of 7 matchup acquisitions, and he beat Jokic with 419 points. His top player in Karl Anthony Towns was 297 and 210 from Wembanyama. I forgot to talk about that. Jokic was 419, and Kobe White was 144 for Boilermakers. Towns is a difference maker in this matchup. Wembanyama, you knew he's going to have that. This is the battle of number 1 and number 2 pick, but I like Towns. Being 300 points from Towns is crazy. Not crazy, but that's how you string together these wins, is getting these role players to do it. Taking down 419 points from Jokic, that's insane. You bozo of the week for sure for letting him score 420 points and still losing, bro. Bozo of the week, Boilermakers, Ben Cochran brother of Jesse Cochran of Noblesville, Indiana, Bozo of the week. Team Velasquez, Manager of the week, runner-up CJ, honorable mention Connor For Real, just for having the win streak going right now in 4 games. And then Slim Shady deserves a shout out there too, because he was patient and he got a big night from Shea Gilgeous-Alexander on Sunday to help him connect the dots and beat the team he should have beat in chance. So I got to give it to Team Velasquez first, runner-up CJ. Player of the week, I like guys, I've been talking about this for a couple minutes. I like guys like Austin Reeves on my team, 230 points from Austin Reeves. Malik Monk for Connor For Real, 208 points. 419 points from Jokic, and you lost, bro. That's crazy. I got to go with Malik Monk, man. I think that made a huge, or Austin Reeves. Let me go Austin Reeves here. I'm a little biased, but Austin Reeves, like I said, Austin Reeves and Trey Murphy 3 being my number 1 and number 2 guys. That's what makes my team dangerous, is you've got my number 1 and number 2 picks just floating around down there somewhere in the mix. But those unlikely heroes are what seals the deal and lets me put up 2,000 points. Let's go for Austin Reeves, Player of the Week. Honorable mention, Cat. I think Karl-Anthony Towns really should be Player of the Week, but I take it back, man. I take it back. Screw Austin Reeves. We're going fucking Karl-Anthony Towns, Player of the Week here. Sorry to keep you guessing with my roundabout ADD thought, but the caffeine is working. Let's track over to the leaderboard here real quick. Number 1 is a 2-way tie. You've got I Have No Franz and Slim Shady both at 8 and 3. I Have No Franz has a bit of an edge over there because he's got about 100 more points, 180 more points or so. Third place is a 3-team tie. Wow, my team is soft. 1-800-9-WIN-IT and Connor For Real. We all sit at 7 and 4. I am sneaking up in that points column, man. By the end of this week, I think I'll be number 1 in points 4 in the league. But you also see I have the lowest points against. So this is a much different story than last year. Last year I had the highest points against and the highest points for a little while, but consistently highest points against the whole year. So this has been a much easier year for me, and I do have some tricky matchups coming up, but we'll talk about that in a minute too. You move into 6th place firm. Boilermakers sits by himself at a 6-5 record. He's got a lot of points to be in that position, but he's also has a lot of points against. You look, he's got 16,237 points for and 16,015 points against. So he's had a lot of close matchups, if that's an indicator of anything. So we'll see if Ben really does scrap his season or hang out. He's in that 6th place spot. 6th place does make the playoffs. But he's got some guys underneath him that have a head full of steam. And in 7th place, you've got a 2-way tie. Grime Time, Super Gremlins, and Jimmy B. And the injuries both sit at 5 and 6. Opposite stories for those teams, though. Grimes is on a 3-game, 3 in a row. And Jimmy B of the injuries is on a 3-game down. They've lost 3 in a row. So Jesse's got to find a way to turn it around, fight through injury here, not give up. He gave up against Wet Boy. Gotta do something, man. You've got CJ sitting in 9th place by himself, 4 and 7. And then 10th is a 3-team tie. The rest of our teams are 3 and 8 in Team Velasquez, Wet Boy Nation, and Chanks Chuchos. Of those 3 teams, the only team to have won recently was Team Velasquez, won last week. Wow, you look at the playoff percentage down there. Team Velasquez has a 5% chance of making the playoffs. Wet Boy Nation has a 4% chance of making the playoffs, and a measly 1% chance for Chance. See what happens. Top of the leaderboard, you have 96% chance for Eric and Slim Shady, 90% chance now for Dakota, who's on a 4-game losing streak, 4-week losing streak. That's a whole month. Didn't get a win in the month of December. That sucks. I've got an 89% chance, 76% chance for Connor For Real, 66% chance for Boilermakers, and there's where the divide happens. 29% chance for Grind Time Super Gremlins, 23% chance for Jesse, and a 24% chance for CJ, Coach Kawhi, and Saboner to make the playoffs. Kawhi Leonard came back for CJ. That'll be something to monitor this week. But that being said, let's kind of look at the matchups we have this week, week 12. Looking ahead, I've got Chanks Chuchos this week. After coming off a 2,000-point week, I gotta put some. I gotta lean in my favor here. I've got a lot of guys playing this week. I've got a full slate on Tuesday. I've got a pretty close to full slate on Thursday. I'm gonna set this at like minus 600 in my favor here. Again, might be biased, trying not to be biased, but Chance did put up a lot of points last week, but I don't know. I don't think it's gonna be enough. I think I might be the team to beat right now. Slim Shady, another team to beat right now, but I got me at minus 600. Second matchup this week showing for me is Grind Time Super Gremlins versus Jimmy B and the injuries. Again, this is that battle of the, 7th place. One of these teams will move up over the other in the leaderboard, in the bloodbath for Eric. But Grind Time Super Gremlins on the 3 in a row wins. Jesse's 3 in a row on a loss. No Luca, no Paolo, no Jimmy Butler all week for Jesse. I'm putting this in Grimes' favor here, man. Oh, goodness. I think Grimes is at minus 400 here, dude. I don't think Jesse has, I don't think he's got enough firepower. I don't think he has the guys he can drop. I don't think he knows what to do this week. He probably won't even set his lineup. You just blame it on the weather or something. Actually, might be able to do that this week. But let's go for Grind Time Super Gremlins at minus 400. Good luck, Jesse. Team Velasquez versus Wow, My Team is Soft. I really think Dakota ought to be able to get a win this week. I think he's pissed. I think he was pissed last week. He's been real quiet in the chats. He lost in the fantasy football thing going on, so I'm setting this in Dakota's favor. Jason Tatum is playing real well. He's got to be pissed off too because they just lost to the Thunder, who took their 15th win straight. Because we don't count the fucking cup games, but while my team is soft, I got you at minus 250 this week. I feel like that's a little modest, but Karl Anthony Towns and Wembanyama, if Towns is playing well, Towns hurt his knee, but he'll probably play through it because he plays for Tom Thibodeau. All right, minus 250 for while my team is soft. Let's see if Jorge's go on a win streak again. Cam Whitmore could be another guy that kind of pops up. Nah, maybe not. It'd be nice to see. Whatever. Let's see Dakota get a win this week. Connor For Real versus Slim Shady. This has contentions to be matchup of the week, which I didn't say matchup of the week from last week, but caught myself slipping here. And I'm going to backtrack real quick. Matchup of the week from last week. I have Slim Shady versus Chanks Chuchos. Came down to Sunday. Or Team Velasquez versus Boilermakers also came down to Sunday. I liked watching both those matchups. Personally, I got more of a kick out of seeing Jorge beat the Boilermakers than I did to see Slim Shady pull out another lucky win. But it could be either one of the Velasquez brothers that pulls out for a matchup of the week last week. So in terms of this week, though, we're back to Connor For Real versus Slim Shady. Both teams on a little bit of a heater right now. 3 in a row for Slim Shady after I beat him. You got 4 in a row for Connor for real. I like Connor in this week's matchup, man. I think Malik Monk makes him tough. I think he's got a lot of healthy players. I do think Daniel needs to have some R.J. Barrett action on the floor. He needs to keep LaMelo Ball on the floor. The curse of LaMelo Ball is hit or miss on him right now. So if all the stars for Daniel play all week long, there's no reason Daniel should lose this matchup. Looks like Jalen Duren played okay last week, but I just think Connor's had we've talked about him all year long. He's won Manager of the Week many times. I think he's one of those teams to beat right now, and I'm going to set it in Connor's favor. I'm going to put it around 150, minus 150, minus 175 for Connor. Daniel's going to enter this week's matchup as an underdog, in my opinion, which doesn't sound right, but these are two great teams. Again, this has contention to be matchup of the week. If Daniel does not make moves on the wire, I think Connor will fill in the gaps and take this victory. But also, if Daniel makes moves on the wire, that might shake it all up. We might see some really good players hit the wire just so that Daniel gets this win. He'll have to kind of come to terms with what he wants to do in this matchup if he finds himself down. You know, do you take the L this week and still hang in the playoff contentions and let Connor, Connor's a good team too. He's one of those guys that's gunning for that number 3 spot. That's gunning for that number 4 spot. He's not one of those guys you just want to give him a win. We'll see. All right. Now that I've said all that, I kind of expect Daniel to, whatever. We're going to leave it be. We'll see what happens with Daniel. We'll monitor that matchup all week. That's my prediction for matchup of the week for week 12. You've got Boilermakers and Wet Boy Nation coming up this week. I think Boilermakers has got this one. Wet Boy is dry in the desert. He's got Santi Aldama in his IR slot. Kelly Oubre in the IR slot for Boilermakers. Guys, you gotta let these guys go. Tari Eason, okay. Cam Thomas makes sense to hang out in an IR slot, but in my opinion, I would rather have that IR, like now that we got 2 of them, I'd rather I keep one open to harbor a guy, and I keep another one open to night in, night out basis. But Kelly Oubre is not a guy I'd put in an IR slot. Not for me. Santi Aldama, maybe, but we'll see. I got Boilermakers in this matchup at minus 400. Sorry, Wet Boy Nation hasn't connected those dots. Jokic is on a tear. Curry's playing well. If Jalen Johnson comes back, stays healthy, it's over for Wet Boy. Final matchup to talk about this week is Coach Kawhi and Sabonis versus I Have No Franz. I think Eric's hurting. A lot of injuries. Of course, Franz is down. Giannis is in and out. And Jeremy Grant is down. He's not playing tonight against the Pistons, which would have been a good matchup for him. But I'm going to set this in CJ's favor. Having Kawhi Leonard back. The Kings are playing well. De'Aaron Fox, if he stays on the floor. I got CJ at minus 150, minus 175. I don't think there's any reason why CJ should lose this matchup. But that being said, Eric is a formidable opponent. He is tied in the first place spot in this league. So we'll see. We will monitor that. And man, I don't know. I like CJ a lot in this matchup. I think he could do this. But I'll let it go. Not a lot else. Not a lot else to talk about here. ADD was real bad today during this recap. So if you made it through, thank you so much. One of my favorite people in the world if you watch these damn recaps. But I think we'll see I think we still have plenty of time to see a lot of things going on in this schedule. Let's count the weeks. We got this week, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 more weeks until the playoffs start. That's plenty of time. We are just over the halfway point, 2 weeks past the halfway point now. So this is really where anybody can still, go on a losing streak, as we've seen Dakota fall from grace. You never know. Looks like Eric could be going on a little bit of a losing streak. We've got teams going on win streaks. Connor For Real and I could easily be the top 1, top 2 teams coming up. Slim Shady could be the team to beat for a few weeks, and then LaMelo Ball could go missing, and then he could be an easy one to take down. But we'll see. We'll monitor this shit, and we'll keep it going. Never count out the underdog. Keep setting that lineup. Try to take a look at your lineup before the tip-off of the games. Try to stay aware of when tip-off is. These early games, these 3:30 tips are the worst. If you've got a guy that's sitting in your IR slot that decides to play, and it's 7 o'clock, and he's going to play in the 8 o'clock game, it's going to be too late. So that's fucking annoying. But those are the things that everybody's up against. So it's not just you, and it's all the more reason to manage that IR slot a little more actively. But just keep looking at it. I always say it takes 5 minutes a day. It probably takes more like 10 minutes a day. And that can be easier said than done for some guys, especially throughout this month of December. I know this month of December was bullshit for me. And I'm pretty sure it was bullshit for a lot of other teams in this league. So things are going to level out now that we're in January. And just hang in there, guys. Get some wins. Watch the wire. Scoop some dudes. Drop some guys. Do whatever the fuck you got to do. But don't give up, because that's some chicken shit, man. We don't do that. That's bird shit. And that being said, don't bet on birds.